Yebo sanibona how. Welcome to SipTalk, your favorite political satire show. Bamba isiphuzo sakho, nakho kushuba. The things that a functioning society must have in ample supply are food and energy. These are the fundamental necessities of life. Not racism or patriarchy, but food and energy. If you have more than what you need, you win. If you don't, you lose. Now that may sound unfair, but we didn't make the rules. Nature did. Yes. Fortunately for South Africans, we live in a country that is abundant in those things. 79% of South Africa is arable land, and while we basically have the whole periodic table in natural resources, we are the largest producer of platinum group metals, alongside our 35 gold mines. We also produced coal, diamonds, iron ore, and chromium, to name a few. And once more, we contain the world's largest reserves of manganese and platinum group metals. Now, the coal industry is the most significant component of the mining industry in terms of added value. It accounts for about 24% of the total volume of the mining sector. But wait, listen to this. In 2020, the proved reserves amounted to approximately 9.9 billion tons, which were to be auctioned off in KwaZulu-Natal. And although coal still dominates South Africa's energy mix, it has given way to other sources in recent years. In 2013, renewable energy sources, which would be water, wind, and the sun, only contributed 0.4% to the total volume of electricity produced. Ain't my dad. Whereas, you may have heard our thug life get rich or die trying presidents attempting to convince us that somehow solar panels are about to power the world. But hey, Cyril, that's absurd. And no one corrects him, and somebody should, because a lot is at stake. If your 7-year-old starts telling you, I'm Batman, you have to correct him before he launches himself from the roof. The stakes are high. So it's our responsibility to point out that the people telling you this have no idea what they're talking about. We are not remotely close to a green energy power grid or anything even approaching it. In fact, as of today, the world is powered, as it has long been, by fossil fuels. Fossil fuels. And that's where more than 80% of global energy comes from. Not from windmills or solar panels, but from oil, gas, and coal. And that's not going to change anytime soon. In fact, the world's largest growing economies, which would be China and India, are using more fossil fuels than ever, not the less. So why is every person in government telling you the opposites? We'll give them the benefit of the doubt. At best, they're naive. They're not engineers. They're just politicians and ideologues. Unfortunately for them, the principles of social justice do not apply to power grids. You can't just rename them and get something different. No, you have to create something new and better. New and better power grids, and South Africa is nowhere near that, and will not be near that during the course of our lifetime. Listen, man. For the foreseeable future, coal is essential to civilization in an utterly non-negotiable way. And that should be great news for South Africans, because in this country, we have a lot. We are rich because we are rich in natural resources. That's why we were colonized and land taken from us by American and European corporations. For example, when our ancestors said, as they often did, that God has blessed us, this is what they were talking about. Yet, suddenly, strangely, South Africa is experiencing shortages in both food and energy. That's why the prices of these things have risen. We don't have enough of them. How did that happen, you may ask? Well, Cyril Ramaphosa listed as an insidious solution. Watch.
We intend to enable businesses, as well as households, to invest in rooftop solar installation. South Africa has great abundance of sun, which we should really use to generate electricity. There is significant potential for households and businesses to install rooftop solar and connect this power to the grid.
It's just embarrassing. It's grotesque, actually. And yabona manje, it's just dangerous. Ingos, gevaar, and no one believes a word of it because it's provably untrue. And SipTalk has the incumbents to prove that it's untrue. So here, let's go. Months before the war in Ukraine began, and somehow Vladimir Putin seized control of energy prices in South Africa, how did he do that? Before any of that happened, the magic happened. South Africa signed the Paris Climate Agreement, and according to this agreement, China and India were allowed to double their coal production. Europe was even allowed to continue their coal construction of the coal plants. In short, this agreement doesn't just eliminate South African jobs, it transfers those jobs out of South Africa and into other foreign countries. This agreement is less about the climate and more about other countries gaining a financial advantage over South Africa. And while you're at it, America and Europe jumped for absolute joy when South Africa signed the Paris Climate Agreement for this simple reason. It puts our country, which we all love, at a gigantic economic disadvantage. Now, this happened before Russia invaded Ukraine. Why did it happen? Super simple. When Cyril Ramaphosa said, "Let's go solar," he was actually telling us that he is Batman, and he proceeded to launch himself from the roof. He told us he was going to rely on renewable energy, and nobody questioned him because he's a senile apartheid hero who owns the media. So no one followed with, "Exe, kwenzala nokuchidi uyahlanya yini?" or "How will he do that?" So he keeps going on with his insidious male cow dung plan of America and Europe looting states' resources. And by the way, if this global warming is such a crisis, an existential crisis, but Europe and the rest of the world continue to use fossil fuels, yet politicians stay silent, maybe they aren't sincere about this climate thing.